On 23 January 2023, the Commission sent you a request for submission of the 5-year declaration of assets and personal interests. On 30 January 2023, you submitted your 5-year declaration. The Commission also asked candidates to voluntarily complete and submit an ethics questionnaire, and you did so on 5 July 2022. The Commission sent you 4 rounds of questions on 17 March, 27 March, 4 April and 8 April respectively. You were asked a total number of 33 questions, including 103 subparts, and 59 of the questions included the request for further documentation. According to Article 3, Paragraph 4 of the evaluation rules of the Commission, a candidate may not provide information, documents or other materials during the hearing if the Commission requested these earlier and the candidate did not provide them within the time specified, unless, of course, the candidate provides sufficient justification. Members of the Commission will now start with asking you questions, and Nadia Ryczewski will start with asking questions first. We will try to keep our questions short and to the point, and we ask that your answers be short and to the point as well. And Nadia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bună ziua, doamna Gladcov.
Good afternoon, Madam Gladcov. The first issue, and you can see it right there, but we will be speaking as in Romanian. You can see it in the facts. It has to do with the declaration of reporting of your husband's income out of renting assets out from 2018 to 2020. So in your annual declarations of assets and personal interests submitted to the National Integrity Authority for the years 2018-2020, you declared income received by your husband from renting out property in the total amount of 2,140,000 lei. In 2018, 580,000, in 2019, 780,000, and in 2020, 780,000 again. According to the information of the State Tax Service, the rental income reported to the STS by your husband for those years totaled 1,926,000 lei. In 2018, 522,000, in 2019, 702,000, and in 2020, 702,000 again. In your answer submitted to the Commission, you confirmed the total amount of your husband's income, and you provided the confirmation documents. According to the information available to the Commission, on the 31st of March 2020, you submitted to the NIA 2 annual declarations, not on the 31st, but the first one was on the 31st of March 2020, and the other one a little bit later, within a month. And in the first one you declared, for 2019, you declared the husband's rental income in the amount of 580,000, and in the other one, 780,000. In the other questions, in the follow-up questions, in the third round, to be more precise, you're asked to explain if you spent the entire amount of that net income, 522,000 for 2018, and whether the amounts for 2019 and 2020 respectively were spent entirely. And you were also asked to explain whether you had any savings at the end of each year, 2018, 19, and 20, and if you had any savings, and were those savings in cash or were those bank savings. In your answers to the Commission, you confirmed repeatedly the information regarding your husband's earnings in those 3 years, and as regards savings, you declared the following, that it is not correct to confirm the certainty, some precise data regarding some particular amounts, particular precise expenditures, as long as the expenses of the money legally acquired by my husband were managed by him. At the same time, they were not strictly divided for certain actions, as the family income, as well as the expenditures for each of the years, were made not at a fixed date, but throughout the entire year. Thus, the savings were made by the husband and used according to the needs. I also reiterate that the money acquired by my husband is managed by him, as are the savings made on the basis of his income. He's the one managing that. And you did not provide any supporting documentation. According to your 2021 declaration that you submitted in 2022, you declared savings, cash savings, amounting to 11,000 euros under your name and 780,000 lei in your husband's name. Now I will ask a number of questions, whether to establish the facts initially, and then if you feel that you need to provide some explanations, you can do that. So please confirm that you declared that in your 2018 annual declaration, you declared the income of your husband out of renting assets out in the total amount of 580,000 lei.
Okay, no, thank you. Excuse me.
Yes, I would like to confirm and to be understood right from the very outset that regarding the declarations and the entire round of questions and answers. So most of that I've answered with my husband and all the other people concerned on my side, meaning that if you look at that, you will notice that it was not me, the one who engaged in all those transactions. I was not part to those processes. So what is in the declarations? Because that information regarding the income of my husband, that is official, and the accountant has also recorded that in the books. So that is their official, according to my declarations and according to the answers that I gave. So now I do not remember precisely the amounts that you read out, but I say that what is in the declarations on assets and what was in my answer, that's declared to be true, to be like that. Understood. So then, according to the STS information, the income, the declared income of your husband, income that was earned out of renting out assets in 2019, so that was 702,000 lei. That is the net amount out of the gross amount of 780,000. So we can conclude that for 2019, the income of your husband was 780,000. Is that correct? I guess so, if you made that calculation. But could you just to be sure that we have the right understanding. So for 2019, you filed two declarations. Is that correct? And initially you wrote 580,000 and then 780,000. Well, perhaps it was that difference that the accountant told us about, but there was another situation of this nature where another declaration was submitted. Because, as you will also see, there's going to be another case when there was a share of the LTD of the husband was donated to my husband. At that time, again, I woke up in the morning and I realized that that too had to be declared. So this particular aspect, after the 31st of March, you still have the possibility to go back and make some adjustments and corrections, considering that I'm only reporting information that is provided to me by either the accountant or the husband, and some other confirmations from him coming along as well. You informed the Commission that your husband has legally earned that rental income, and you provided supporting documentation. Is that correct? Yes. Your husband earned this income in cash? I guess so. The activity of that business, so that's a road construction company. So I imagine that is in cash, and the reason is because as for the management in this regard, as I already said, any issues with how my husband earned the income and his activity, his business, in that regard, you saw that he then engaged in other transactions as well, procurements of vehicles and all that, and there were many business trips to find these vehicles to be able to grow, to develop that business. So he's involved a lot in management. When it comes to the maintenance, providing for the family, children, that is already a common budget. And Mr. Miron will have to, I guess, admit as well that the realities in Moldova are that I can't tell that it's this particular amount that it was cash or that was not. No, the question was, did he receive that money in cash? I guess so, because in my financial investigation into my family, I did not come across any accounts. Thank you. And you also said that your husband was the one managing the funds, and that certain savings were being made every year, but you were not able to provide a specific amount. Yes, and I can explain this. Yet again, in terms of a strict division, separation, as in, this is going to be an amount that you are going to spend, this is what I earned, and we're going to make these payments from this or that amount. We don't do that. The rule in our house is that no illegal activity should be engaged in, one that could, for instance, prejudice my reputation, so we don't do that, and I don't do anything that would prejudice his reputation. So that's what we agree. So these are certainly legal income. This is illegal income. There could be money, obviously, in cash, and as to their management is again not separated in any particular way, but I think that this question mostly has to do with him. I understand, because we have another question coming along as well. In your written answers, you said that the spending the money legally acquired by her husband was managed by him. However, you didn't have this strict division on how to spend the money. So the savings were also done by the husband and managed by the husband. Just wanted to clarify that. Understood. But if the savings are beyond well, that's what I was thinking of anticipating, because indeed, if I were to look into the income that I have as a prosecutor, that is my only source of income as a prosecutor. Now I'm here in front of you as representative of the prosecutor's office and as a prosecutor, so my income to a great extent, that is practically the salary is my only source of income. So I spend money out of my salary. As for my husband, his expenses are covered from the cash amounts that he has as well. So it's a little bit complicated now to provide a clear-cut answer as to where the money was taken from to cover some expenses, But then again, if you looked into the declarations, and I think that the Honorable Commission has also noticed that all these declarations that year over year, the changes are being made to them. So right now there is a legal provision allowing. So there is a particular margin on the amounts to be declared. So there is a particular margin that even though that is saving, it does not to be declared. What do you mean by margin? This margin is 15 average salaries. And it has been enforced since 2016. In your answers, you did not declare, and I would like to ask you whether it is correct to assume, whether the Commission is right to assume that until 2021 you did not have cash savings or on bank accounts or bank cards in amounts that would be above 15 average salaries in the economy. Precise amounts there were 92,000 in 2018, 104 in 2019, that is, and 119,000 in 2020. I did not have such savings. As regards my husband, it's only from the legally acquired amounts, so only from that. I know that he's made some savings from that, from the legally acquired income, but he's been investing those funds, so the money was moving. As for a specific amount given to me, so to speak, as savings, I did not have that. I was not given that. But the savings, for them to be declared, the law requires that the savings be declared, the savings of the family. Yes, that is correct, and that was a question to be raised to my husband, so relying on his answers in good faith. And in your 2021 declaration, you declared cash savings of 11,000 euros under your name and 780,000 lei under your husband's name. Is that our correct understanding, that those savings have been accumulated only in 2021? I guess so. I rely on what I declared earlier. So, relying on that and on that source, because now As for the savings, my savings, or that the savings of my husband, if you read them like that, it means those are the savings. But considering that you didn't declare any savings from the previous years, this follows as a logical conclusion that what you earned in 2021, that is the income on the basis of which you managed to have those savings. Is that, yeah, I guess that is correct. Is there anything else you'd like to add on this note? No, I just wanted to make sure that it's all clear as regards, and just to try to be correct about the financial situation of the family. And the fact that the person who acquires, who earns the funds to provide for the family, to give our family financial independence, that would be the husband, would be the provider. And the respect towards his activity, towards his income, towards his need to develop, to grow, I have this respect for these. It's just that his work and earning funds, this has to be legal. And the expenses, as far as I checked, this is some sort of an investigation into my family's finances, and I did not notice any excessive expenses that would have made me feel that something was not right. And therefore, I did try to do things right in our family, and as regards the financial situation of the family, considering the income that I have, I also have this task to make sure on how to address certain expenses and needs.
You were just referring a few minutes ago to the fact that... sorry. A few minutes ago, you were referring to the fact that possible savings from your husband's business was then used for investments again. So they were not actual savings, they were used again in order to make investments. What kind of investments are we talking about? Of course, it's the business of your husband, but what kind of investments was he making for that he used from those savings?
Well, I guess I will have to let you in my life, so to speak, and in the life of my family. As for the business of my husband, his activity started about 10 years ago. He had this desire to start a business in that field. He is in the third generation of this construction business, so to speak. He studied law and then he set out on this path. But to build a business in Moldova on your own, independently, and in order for one not to have to take loans, not to be forced into taking loans, because that is another complicated path. So what you need is a lot of time, and what you also need is to persevere, which he did. He persevered. And I'll try to put it all in a nutshell. Most of the time he's abroad on the lookout for all sorts of equipment, because the road building requires also have equipment that is very costly, very expensive. And in the Q&A sessions, rounds, I provided examples of all his trips, and every trip, some of them were good and others not, but anyway, you have to incur expenses for every trip that you take. And then when you have to go abroad, you don't always know what to expect when you travel abroad. So if you found some vehicle that you were going, or equipment that you wanted to have a contract with, the third-party obligation is not always observed. So sometimes he goes out, and when he arrives at the place, at the destination, that person, for instance, says that the agreement no longer stands, or the asset is already sold. Sometimes the equipment, now this is going to be a little bit more technical details, even for myself, when there are very heavy machines, that also means that it's very expensive to get the machine in, or to get the equipment in, and you have to track it, because there's a lot of responsibility about getting into the country. So that means there has to be a company, there's a company that provides taxes, that provides jobs, more than 30 jobs, and that's again his responsibility to look over that. In addition to that, he also takes on all those expenses. Sometimes I call them investments into the future. But he sometimes doesn't write it on the company, not to make it more difficult, because every trip outside of the country can be regarded as a minus as regards the salary of the staff of the company. It could be seen like that. So that's what I called investments. And then some equipment was purchased as well, even in the declarations you can see, because I'm not that knowledgeable about this sort of aspects. That's what I called investments. Investments into his personal development and into the development of his company.
Yeah, okay. Oh, no, but you know for issue number 2? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me now continue with the issue number 2. And this issue concerns non-declaration of your and your husband's income to the state tax service, and also non-payment of taxes. Issue number 1. In your 2017 annual declaration, you declared income for your husband from salary of 30,000 Moldovan lei and rental income in the amount of 150,000 Moldovan lei. Both amounts were received from the company of AAC. According to the state tax service data that we retrieved on 7 February 2023, your husband's company had not reported any payment made to him in 2017. In the first round of questions sent to you on 17 March 2023, the Commission asked you to explain why you had declared your husband's income in your 2017 annual declaration when your husband had not declared it to the state tax service. In your responses submitted to the Commission on 21st March, you stated that according to the law, your husband was not obliged to submit a declaration to the state tax service, as he had revenues only in one company. This is your statement. As to the income from renting equipment, the company reported it to the state tax service. In your follow-up responses submitted to the Commission on 30 March 2023, you stated that you had declared these amounts based on the information provided by your husband. You also claimed that both amounts, 30,000 and 150,000 Moldovan lei, were declared to the state tax service by the AC company, and that your husband, as an individual, was not obliged to declare this income to the state tax service. You submitted a copy of a document concerning, and I quote, information displayed on the portal of the tax service provided by the company's accountant, end of the quote. This undated and unsigned document contains information about 30,000 lei and taxes calculated on this amount. According to the state tax service data retrieved by the Commission on 3rd April of this year, as of that date, your husband's company had reported salary of 30,000 lei and rental income in the amount of 150,000 lei to the state tax service, and taxes on that income were calculated in the amount of 16,879 lei. It is not clear whether the taxes were paid, and both FVID 14 forms are included in the materials we furnished to you today. So I'll begin by asking you some questions to establish the facts, and hopefully this can be answered with yes and no responses, and later we will ask you some questions, and you will be given opportunity to explain more. So question number 1, please confirm that in your 2017 annual declaration you declared your husband's 2 income from company AC. This is 30,000 lei from his salary and 150,000 as a rental income.
Yes, Madam Nona. I declare that the data in the declaration and in my explanation in the answer, that is correct.
At the time of sending the first round of questions 17 March 2023, this income had not been reported to the State Tax Service according to the State Tax Service records. In your answers to the first round of questions that we received on 21st March, you stated that according to the law in force at that time, your husband was not obliged to declare this income to the State Tax Service as he had revenues only in one company. You further stated that AC reported his rental income to the State Tax Service. Is that correct?
Yes.
In your second round of questions submitted to the Commission on 30th March, you stated that you had declared these amounts in your 2017 annual declaration based on the information provided by your husband. You also claimed that both amounts were declared to the State Tax Service by the company AC. Is that correct?
Da.
Yes.
Okay. On 30th March, you submitted a copy of a document allegedly provided by the company's accountant. You claim that this is the information displayed on the portal of the tax service. This document bears neither the date nor the authentication number. It apparently contains information on salary of 30,000 leis and taxes calculated on that amount. Please explain how this document proves that AC declared 30,000 and 150,000 leis to the State Tax Service and the amount of taxes were paid.
Yes, if I may, I will explain this situation. First of all, with respect to the obligation to declare this amount, I mentioned Article 83 of the Tax Code in the version of 2017, which states that so you have to declare only if it exceeds the amount of 31,000 lei 140 for 1 year. So the income of an individual. Moreover, since this is from one single source of income. So when this question was asked, I asked it to my husband, and then the husband asked the accountant. They checked again the declaration for that year. I actually made an observation because this is what I presume the Commission probably checked with the tax authority and did not find a declaration of this amount. So we departed from this hypothesis that probably there is an issue. So I would like to mention from the very beginning that the accountant confirmed that taxes were paid, and taxes are paid as follows. Out of the amount of 150,000, the company pays the tax, and the net amount is given to the person who earns it, in this case to my husband. So the picture that I got from my husband and from the accountant respectively, the accountant can see all their declarations. They can view them electronically online. And that statement and the picture are from the data that are accessible to the accountant of the company and online from the tax authority. Also, she said she tried to check the following years, and you can view only starting with 2021. I think probably, as she said, there are some changes in the system. Sometimes these payments are visible, sometimes they are not. And the statement that I provided is from the portal, but with the possibility to access it for the accountant, because she is the person who has the right to open the personal data of the company. So you may notice that to the declared income is minus 200 something lei, and the accountant said that that was a 200 lei debt of the state towards my husband as a taxpayer. So I would like to say that the money, this was declared, and these declarations were checked by the company, by the notary, and once more, the tax service was asked again because my husband is registered in Chimishlia and taxes are paid, income is declared, and the tax liability of the company was fulfilled. So the tax liability about 150,000 is up to the company, not is related to the company, not to my husband. So that's the difference, because somehow the article sounds, the conclusion is very harsh, like non-declaration of income. That sounds initially as already a finding of as a statement of fact, but again, there is an online statement, a picture made by the accountant, and she found that only in 2021 you can start openly all the payments of taxes of the individual and of the legal entity.
Your answer is accepted. So according to the STS data retrieved by the Commission on 3rd April, your husband's company had apparently reported this income to the State Tax Service between the period of 17 March and 3rd April, and taxes on that amount were calculated in the amount of 16,879. Apparently, it happened after the first round of questions had been sent to you, and I would ask your reaction to this information.
No, certainly no. A copy of the document was provided. When the question was first asked, that's when a picture was taken and submitted by the accountant. What's the reason why it is not visible for the tax authority? I don't know, but if you say that it was viewed and some response was, even when the husband asked the tax service, I think that in the last 3 months he's the most active beneficiary and person who and the tax authority probably has already issues with the number of my husband's questions. So probably that's when it started, and the question why was asked, because I gave access to all of my data to the Commission Secretariat, and it wasn't clear why these payments are not visible. And it was confirmed, but I don't know if you can see it on that picture. For me, it was important for the accountant to take a photo online to show that the payment was made, and that was from the first round, from the first time when you asked this question. That's when this request was made and the problem solved. Moreover, if there was any issue, I would like to mention that the legal responsibility for the tax duties for my husband, as husband, the 30,000, I mentioned that he did not have to declare when it comes to the company's tax liability. But should a violation or a report or complaint happen, since this question was raised of a husband and you as a commissioner, I don't know if you sent any request, but by now the State Tax Service would have responded by applying some fines, but nothing like that happened.
I just want to clarify one matter back that I already asked, but still, the document that you submitted on 30th March concerns only 30,000. So my question was, how this document also proves that another amount, 150,000, was reported. So probably then let's go back to this issue and you can clarify, because I can provide you this document if you would like.
Madam Nona, I will not get any clarity because I'm not good with accounting and I'm not involved in such things. But the idea is the amount of 150,000 is the rental payment based on a contract. I submitted you the contract, so it exists in the company, and the company had it. And if we try to make a deduction, the payment for that, according to that contract, was made. Moreover, the legislation of the Republic of Moldova is very rightly written from the following perspective. The company does not make the payment before the tax is withheld. So to make a correct conclusion, the duty to pay the tax lies with the company for the rental of equipment.
So, according to information that we retrieved on 4th April, the amount of taxes calculated on the income was 16,879. So, do you have any information whether this particular amount was paid by the company as an income tax for 2017?
Yes, well, I understand that in case if this tax was not paid, there's a contract that I submitted to you that was in the company, and later on, given the actions that we carried out when you asked these questions and the response to the tax authority, so if the tax wasn't paid, fines would have been applied. By now, no fines were applied, and if I'm not mistaken, I also submitted you documents about debts that my husband and the company have. All people that have that are subject of taxation everywhere, they have zero debts to the state. But this is the state's response. I mean, I don't think if it was possible not to have a response from the state tax service or other reporting authorities.
This was my last question. Do you have anything to add or further clarify with respect to this issue?
If I may, just 1 second. Before I came here, I looked into the CV or what is available on the internet. I also watched all hearings, and Madam Nona seemed like a very strict person. I know that you are a prosecutor from your CV, and that raises empathy with me, and thank you very much for being quite empathic and close, giving me time to gather my thoughts and give you answers.
You have all the time to explain your position, so let's continue. And another question concerns a plot of land in the village of in the Broga village, Singera city. In 2015, you registered the ownership right over a 0.054 hectare plot of land in the Broga village, Singera city, Chisinau municipality, in your husband's and your name. You received this plot of land on the basis of title of authentication of the right of the landowner of 3rd September 2015. You stated that you, as a newly formed family, were entitled to benefit from a land plot for construction. At that time, you had not owned real estate. In your 16 to 2020 annual declarations, you declared the value of this property as zero lei. In your 2021 annual declaration, you declared income of 75,154 leis. This is approximately 3,500 euros from the sale of this plot of land. According to information from the State Tax Services for 2021, you did not declare the income from the capital increase from the sale of this land plot. In response to questions from the Commission about the capital increase and whether you paid taxes, you stated that personally you had not submitted an income statement to the State Tax Service for 2021 for the purpose of paying capital increase. You further noted that, as far as you could remember, the liability for taxes had been discussed at the signing stage of the contract. You claimed that you would verify whether the income statement to the State Tax Service for 2021 for the purpose of paying capital increase tax was submitted and informed the Commission about its results. No updates were provided to the Commission. And here again, I'll begin asking you some questions to establish the facts. First of all, allow me to pay your attention to the document that we provided to you. We actually obtained a copy of the decision of 4-5 from 2011. So you have a copy, so please consult during the questioning. So question number 1. In 2015, you registered ownership right over a 0.054 hectare plot of land in the Broga village, Singera city, that you received free of charge from the local authorities. This decision was based on decision number 4/5 of the Singera city from 2011. This plot of land was registered in your and your husband's name. Is that correct?
Yes.
You informed the Commission that you originally are from Singera city, you had newly formed family, and that you owned no real estate at the time you requested the plot of land. Is that correct?
Yes, these are mandatory conditions as provided by the law.
Please consult the decision of 2011 and confirm that you requested the land plot based on Article 11 of the Land Code.
Madam Nona, I am confident of that because we certainly acted in good faith. But well, I understand that the decision exists. The request, well, it was, I did not check, but it was provided that in any case, even though the law gives you this right, the request must be provided. That was a standard set of documents that you have to submit as a kind of a personal file. And the request was, or application was a mandatory document. And when locality was finding a lot of land plots were issued during that part, were assigned during that period. So, and I showed the analysis on 999s. That was a quite complicated area for living, but many personal requests coming from new formed families, and at a certain point that they reached the necessary number of families or land plots that are to be distributed, they did do this allocation.
In your 2016 to 2020 annual declarations, you declared this property with the value of 0 leis. Is that correct?
I declared it under 0 lei because I got it for free. It was given for free by the state. And I couldn't set a market value for it or something because I did not pay for that property.
You sold this plot of land in 2021 for the declared price of 75,154 leis. You declared this amount in your 2021 annual declaration. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. The contract was concluded in the period you mentioned. So according to the declaration that I made, I stated the contract and that was signed at the notary's office and the amount mentioned in the contract for sale purchase.
You did not register payment of the tax for the capital increase following the sale of the land in 2021. Please explain why you did not pay tax on the capital increase and provide any updates you may receive meanwhile.
Of course, I dealt with this issue already. I'd like to mention that the sale purchase contract was concluded at the notary's office, and the discussion with the persons who purchased the land plot, and there was a decrease, a subtraction from the income tax. So we discussed the amount with the condition that the tax should have been paid by the people who are buying the land plot. And later on, when this question was raised, I'd like to mention that In 2021, when my husband went to the tax authority, he was told that the contract was not visible yet. These contracts are registered by the notary and by the party who has to go to the cadastre and register their property, and that is Madam Sunduianu, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know her. We met just then. So she had to go to the notary for this contract to be visible then to the tax authority, because my husband during that time went to the tax authority, and the tax liability raises at the end of the year. So, and he was told, you should come and declare it then. And later on, you may have noticed, I told you that we started to check if we owe anything to the tax authority. And moreover, if these contracts show up and we have this obligation, if the right of property, right of ownership was transferred. And recently, I contacted that person on their phone number and it is disconnected from service in order to ask if it was registered and things. As I understood, my husband was the one, who dealt with this matter, and I understood that the notary was the person. I mean, in order to be able to pay, the contract should be seen, and the notary, only in 2023, when this question was like 3 times asked to the tax authority, he only then registered that contract, and then the ownership was transferred to Madam Sunduianu as a buyer, and then it was visible at the tax authority, this sale purchase contract. And the tax liability had raised in 2023 only, and there is 1 year to pay the tax. And I have a copy of the receipt that confirms the fact that when the tax liability happened, we immediately paid the tax related to that contract. If I may, I have it and I can share it as a submission.
Let me clarify some issues that you raised now. So you say that you argue actually that the plot of land was sold in 2021, but until 2023 it was not transferred into the ownership of the new owner. Is it right understanding?
That's exactly what I understood. The contract should have, either property right is registered, ownership right is registered, would be visible to the tax authority and would be visible to all other authorities. But the notary declared this contract and it is visible. So he registered the contract only in 2023, and that was the question. I mean, in 2021, we were told that when the contract is visible in the system, you will have this tax liability to pay. We tried to obtain statements, and again, it wasn't there. And only in 2023, the contract was registered and became visible in the system, because the notary, as a reporting entity, registered that contract as being fulfilled. And I tried to make a phone call. It would be much faster to find if the ownership right was registered. But that phone number is already disconnected from service. But we undertook all actions. So once the tax liability appeared in 2023, we paid this tax. And no fine is visible because, though again, I would like to say that being a client of a tax authority in Chimishlia town, we always were coming back to this issue. Is there tax liability in this respect? And this contract was not visible, was not reported by the notary.
Can you specify when did you pay taxes? You pay in 2023, but exactly the date.
Just a second, I will tell you. Because my husband paid, on April 26, 2023, even though. So according to reporting and after the tax liability happened in 2023, it is possible to pay it during the entire year. Madam Gladcov, I just want to clarify one thing. You sold this land plot in 2021, correct? We drafted the sale purchase contract with the notary in 2021. Yes. And you got the money in 2021 from the buyer. Yes, of course. And when we concluded the contract, when we went to the tax office, they told us that the tax liability will be visible in the system at the end of the year. That means that you should have paid in 2022? No. It means that the contract in the database where it should have been registered and reported by the notary. Meaning that if the notary does not register the sale purchase contract, well, the contract is drafted when the property is transferred. But why? I don't understand. Why didn't the notary register it? I can't tell you why. From the tax authority, again, had several visits to the tax authority, and only in 2023 this debt showed up in relation to that contract that was registered by the notary. So the notary registered the contract in 2022, in 2023. So it showed up as a tax liability then. And I think that's also related to us being insistent, because paying for a contract that is not visible and reported to the tax authority, that raises doubts. Well, from what I know, notary activity, they have the obligation to report everything. I know that, and that's why I'm saying maybe a reason was that the party who bought it did not register it, but the name of a notary is in the contract that I submitted. Yes, of course. That's what. Moreover, I draw a comparison with a donation contract that I had, and there was this question, and I started to call all professionals. I started to read the law. I mean, what did I violate for declaring the donation contract? But I didn't manage to register it on my name. And then I was told that as long as you don't go to the cadastre, don't register the contract, and the right of ownership is not transferred into your name, this contract is not visible. And me, as a person who was actually holding this contract, who was at a notary, it has no legal effect. Yeah, it's clear with the donation contract, but when you have a sale purchase contract for a land plot, I understand that in 2021 you went to the tax authority, like second day we went, and the tax authority told it's not registered. It's not, the contract is not there, it's not visible on our name. And in 2021, how did it happen that only barely in 2023? So you made several requests repeatedly in 2021, 2022? Yes, and you can see, even in the materials on other occasions, we asked to be told, like, do we have to pay anything? Do we owe anything? Are there any debts in our name towards the state? Do we have any answer from the tax authority in 2021 or 2022? No, I provided. So they provided me all the statements. No. When you went there and you asked about it after you sold the land plot in 2021 or 2022 to pay, you have no written answer, only verbal answers? Yes, it was a personal visit. It wasn't by phone or messenger. Thank you. I have no other questions.
Just one question. So because of this registration of the contract, is it correct to conclude that even after selling this plot of land in 2021 and before you registered and paid taxes 2023, this plot of land was still considered as your property?
Now, I cannot say and I cannot check. My task was to solve the situation with the payment of the tax, regardless of whether it is still registered in my name or not. I think that now, if we find, and I think that if it was reported by the notary, that means that it was registered. But, you know, even if it were to be in my name currently, I am now calm that the tax is paid and potentially reimbursement of the amount.
I apologize, I'm having a little trouble following this. Is it correct that you did not believe that you could pay taxes on the sale until the contract was registered?
Nu că credeam, dar
It's not that I believed, but I was looking for a solution, and I always asked. Because in the end, it's also up to the tax services duties and the duty of a buyer to register that contract. Because since they obtained the purchase contract, it's the obligation of a party to register their new property. It's notary's duty to register the contract, and it's obligation of a tax authority. When a person says that has to be paid, well, calculation and payment and liability is pertinent to that authority, not to me. But for diligence reasons, I decided to make efforts to find out whether is it necessary to pay for it or not. And I'm trying to explain that currently, from the way that we managed, I didn't even check was that ownership right registered on the buyers or not. But my task was to pay the tax, and after that, I will check what the situation is. I tried to call, but they have a right to register it, but they also have a right not to register it. So my duty right now, in order to manage to do it before this hearing of a commission, was to find or to ask all institutions and to make all precautions in order to pay this tax. That was my task.
Okay. From the date that the purchase contract was entered into, you had a copy of the contract, correct? And you knew the amount that had been paid to you to purchase the property. Did the tax service ever tell you that you could not have declared the amount of income from that sale and pay taxes irrespective of whether the property was ever registered? Or the transaction was ever registered?
It's not that we couldn't. It's just, as I explained, that at the time when the contract was concluded, and they looked into whether the payment was made on the basis of the contract. And the contract that was entered into, that was concluded by the notary, is to be reported at the end of the tax year. So when my husband went there after to conclude the contract, when my husband went there, he was told, look, it's at the end of the year, so at the end of the year, a report for the entire year with regards to the reporting of all taxes. That is a rule, that is provided for in the tax code, and the 31st of March, I think that is being the limit date. But when he was told that the contract reported by a notary could be viewed at the end of the year, and that at that time, at the end of the year, you will have the possibility to pay taxes. If there's anything, if you'll have some other income, it's the end of the year anyway, and there is a period of time, a concrete period of time for declaration and for the payment of taxes at the end of the year. So that was the first contact that we had with the tax service. Because in addition to that contract, there could have been other income as well that taxes should be paid on. So it would turn out as in there have to be several declarations, or from which some tax liabilities would emerge. And that contract was registered in the database and reported by the notary. That issues or that leads to a tax liability towards us. And that again emerges just at the end of the year. It's at the end of the year that you perform these duties, so to speak. So that's what we learned out of our first contact with the tax service.
Nothing prevented you from the end of the year declaring the income you received from that sale, correct?
But we couldn't see the contract registered. Even now this is what I know out of communication with my husband. We went there, but he says that they told him that we can't see any registered contract. If there was a contract, we could see that this property was transferred to another party. But in terms of a tax liability, for a tax liability to emerge and to respond to it, there has to be a document that serves as a basis for that. So they said, we can't see this document, we can't see this contract that would serve as a basis for you paying the taxes. I mean, he could have presented it, but that is a mandatory contract that has to have a particular content and form, and it's with the notary. But the notary did not report such a contract.
But you had a copy of the contract, correct, as of that time?
Da.
Yes.
Madam Gladcov,
We have information from e-Cadastre, and it says that that contract was registered on the 24th of June, 2021. And you should also have a copy of that. I will go through it. We have a lot of documents here, and if it's not there, they will bring it to you. But the contract was registered with e-Cadastre on the 24th of June. I did not check the e-Cadastre, but it's in the e-Cadastre that it is to be registered after it is notarized by a notary. It is to be registered there. And in this case, I guess it would be easy to, I thought it would have been easier to check it through the tax authorities, not through the Cadastre. I didn't check the Cadastre. It's something that was not communicated this far, wasn't addressed, so it was not really clear. How would you suggest us to check then? Are you saying that, well, what is more, I would like to be the one to initiate looking into that and to request some information, and I will then provide that information because there is that one entity that my husband works with all the time, so I'll try to do my best to provide all the supporting documentation entirely. So this is a copy showing that it has been registered in the e-Cadastre. It's recorded there. I said at the outset that I didn't really check this. So does it mean that in the e-Cadastre system is not perhaps compatible with the tax authorities system? I don't know. I don't know about that, but I will anyway look into this matter. And as the case may be or require, I will do whatever I can to provide supporting documentation. A question. This land was distributed to you in 2015. Over the years 2016, 17, 18, you've been paying taxes for this real estate. Have you been paying taxes? Yes, and after you've alienated it in 2021, have you been paying taxes? Did you continue to pay taxes with regards to that land plot? You didn't for 2021, 2022? I cannot confirm or otherwise as far as the taxation matters are concerned, because the taxation is supposed to be based on real estate, so I don't. Now that you've asked me now, and I can't be certain whether I paid for this real estate because there was other payments that I made. So now that the question has emerged, I can't be too certain in answering it, and I also don't have a document that I could refer to check.
Do you have anything to add or further supplement to it, to this question? Okay, so then we are done with this issue, and let's move to another subject, which is related to ownership of shares in a company of your husband. So, according to the company's register since 2017. Your husband has been listed as a founder of TC Ltd with 50% of company shares. The company operates in the construction field. You did not declare your husband's ownership of shares in this company in your 2017-2021 annual declarations. In your response to questions from the Commission, you stated that your husband had worked in a company that had founded TC Ltd and that he could not remember if he had participated in the establishment of the company, and neither you or your husband had known that he had shares in this company. On 11 April 2023, you provided a certificate number 22 of 29 March this year, produced by an administrator of TC Ltd, which states that this company was founded on 6 March 2017 by two associates, IG and your husband. During 2017 and 2018, the company did not operate. In 2019, the company registered income of roughly 55,000 leis. In that year, IG, one of the co-founders, introduced a nominal capital in the amount of 1,000 leis for both founders. and you provided cash allocation orders of 5th and 8th April 2019. Your husband did not make any contribution to the nominal capital. In 2020, the company registered total income of roughly 550,000 leis, in 2021 180,000, and 2022 30,000 leis. During the company's activities, dividends were not paid. On 11 April 2023, you provided to the Commission a copy of the letter of the same date from your husband to an administrator of this company asking to initiate proceedings with the aim of removing him from the company's registration documents because he had not contributed to the nominal capital and had not received any income or participated in the management of the company. The letter bears, so you provided the signed copy of this letter later on April 25th. I'll begin by asking you some questions to establish the facts like in the previous occasions. You did not declare TCL to the company that had been co-founded by your husband in 2017 in your annual declarations for 2017 to 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
Initially, you argued that neither you nor your husband were aware that he had a 50% share in this company. In the follow-up questions, you provided documents proving that his co-founder had paid a total of 1,000 leis as a contribution to the nominal capital on behalf of both founders, 500 leis for each. Is that correct?
The payment was made by that Madam Golovatyuk, if I'm not mistaken, from what I remember.
To provide her name, I just want confirmation.
Mă scuzați, vă rog, am fost prea apropiat.
I would just need confirmation that administrator made contribution in the nominal capital on behalf of your husband. So that's correct, yes. Please explain why you said that your husband did not know that he was a co-owner of a company, especially a functioning one operated in the construction business where your husband is also active.
I will explain that. The founders, the actual founders, those who initiated the establishment of the business, they were former employers of my husband. He worked for that other company, and those people initiated the establishment of a new company. And there were some powers of attorney because my husband was responsible for some documents. In the initial company, he was responsible for some documents in that initial company where he was also hired, also dealing with roads construction. That's where he acquired experience and learned how to do it. But then some issues emerged in the operation of that initial company that my husband was working for. And so that's how the other company was then formed and emerged from there, and then that madam made all those payments. I imagine that if she made the payments, I imagine there must have been some sort of a power of attorney from my husband. But initially he was hired in the company that madam was the owner of, was the founder of, so he was hired by her. This is the relationship. It was not incidental, and there was no purpose for him to set up that business. In the initial company, in the first company, he was an employee, and there was a power of attorney in place for different activities. So, and then that other company was opened, and knowing that he didn't have income, he was not engaged in any of the operations of that company, then these questions emerged. We looked into it. We had to make some requests because the relationship afterwards wasn't quite good, and there was some disagreement over how things were being managed, so he left in order to set up his own business. So that's why there was some communication now between my husband and them regarding that company. And it turns out that he indeed paid nothing. He did not participate in any way, did not contribute in any way, as in with shares. He didn't have any income from there. I would rather say his participation there was rather perfunctory, formal. And now a request was written to them for this situation to be recognized for what it is and for his perfunctory participation to be deleted, because it is important for us that they admit that indeed he did not participate, did not initiate anything, and was not paid anything. But I also have to say that in the declaration for the previous year, it turns out, after all this information was acquired, that share of his was still declared, and we then communicated we talked to specialists from NIA in order to see, as far as the NIA is concerned, to see whether this situation is problematic. We explained that there was no de facto participation by payment of that share because he did not make that contribution, and we explained there was no income obtained from the company, and that we said we didn't have any claims with it because actually those initial capital payments were not made by my husband as well. So
you partially answered to my follow-up question, but still I would like you to clarify. Please explain your husband's or your relationship with the co-founder of this company, Mrs. IG.
Well, I explained the situation. He worked in this field for a longer time, and my husband, well, it is known that in road construction, you're supposed to have a practice of at least an experience of at least 5 years to be issued a license. So that was mandatory for one to be able to get a job in this field. So he's been working in that company. I don't think I should speak about the way the company was being managed, but still they ran into some conflict. There was conflict between employers and employees regarding the payments of salaries and all the other issues, and my husband was responsible practically of everything there, and therefore he made the decision to leave. And their communication was very poor, bad, and in the Q&A rounds, there was some issue was raised about the car that was bought by the founder of the company. And I mentioned that, well, as it was not in a good condition, it has been damaged. There was a question about the price. The vehicle was damaged. Even an incident, such as an accident, happened with that car and is not being used now, the vehicle. So the relationship was difficult. So it's now that we're trying through some sort of letters to obtain the confirmation of the fact that action was taken on behalf of my husband, like in his name.
Can you explain why did Mrs. IG would pay a nominal capital on behalf of your husband?
To me, Madam Nona, what is important is to explain to you and to myself the fact that my husband did not participate. He did not pay those amounts. Now, by means of deduction, I understand that there must have been some sort of power of attorney, because my husband used to be responsible for everything in that company in terms of payments, bills, invoices, and everything, like documentation he had to handle with the bank and notaries and all that sort of business. So we need to figure out how they did it. But to me, to Nia, to everyone, what is important is to establish and to have the recognition of the fact that he was actually not the one who has shares in the share capital, that he doesn't have any right to the income of that company, and that he in fact did not contribute in any way to that nominal capital.
If I may follow up on this statement. So on one hand, you claim that you did not know that your husband had shares in the company, and now you claim that there was some sort of power of attorney, and your husband, as far as I understand, if I understand correctly your answer, was participating or giving some permissions in some of the activities of the company, or I misunderstand anything?
Nu,
Those are two companies in fact. So that initially my husband was working in, I'll call it the first company of those administrators. So those other people, previous bosses of my husband, they owned a big construction company. My husband worked in that company as an employee. And there was a power of attorney on allowing him to take different actions. So how things worked, I don't know. Even these payments, it was established that it was on behalf of other people that they were setting up businesses. Now we'd have to look into how exactly they were doing it. It's only certain that I can only be certain about what my husband did or did not do. So there are two companies, and the second one has stopped even working. They didn't have too much business, and we don't even maintain any communication to know what's going on with those companies.
Let's continue. Apparently, in a letter of 11 April 2023, which you provided to the Commission, first unsigned and later on a signed version, your husband addressed an administrator of the company with the request to remove him from the registration documents. Please explain how this affects your obligation to disclose his shares in the company in the period of 2017 to 2021.
Probabil n-am înțeles.
I might not have not understood the questions. What do you mean by disclosing it?
So, your husband initiated proceedings now in 2023 to withdraw from the company. On another hand, you did not declare these shares in your annual declarations from 2017 to 2021.
I declared, so this obligation to declare, this obligation appears at the time when you learn about the existence of the object to be declared. So when I learned about it in my declaration in 2023, although we just initiated the process to prove that he was not a beneficiary in any way, he did not make any payments, he participated in no way, in fact, that he was there just formally indicated, his name was there just formally. Still, in 2023, when this information became known to us, I started to report it at that time in the declaration, that share that he's had, once we learned about it at all.
Your statement that you were not obliged to declare this company between 2017 and 2021?
I'm not saying that I didn't have the obligation, but we had some communication with the NIA specialists, and they told us that if you learned about it just now, then you declare it in your declaration now, when you found out about it, to show that you acted in good faith. As for the obligation, it perhaps existed, but we didn't know about the existence of such obligation because we didn't know about him having shares in the company. What is more, even now declaring this in the 2023 declaration that was filed in 2023, that is again rather perfunctory, formal, because in fact, no payments whatsoever were made. That share that he was supposed to contribute with, that gives you the right to be regarded as a shareholder. So now we found ourselves in a situation where I declared it as a share, as his share, but in fact we're not actual beneficiaries of that share. We have no right to whatever income, and what is more, none of our money from our income was not spent to be contributed with to that company.
I have one question about the situation. What could have been the reason for this other person to create shares in the name of your husband while your husband was not aware? What could have been the economic or whatever other reason for that person to do so?
Herman, you put me in a situation where I should deduce the intention of the people who did that and to sort of simulate a relationship that I am not aware of. What is certain is only the fact that we've established this situation, and it's very good that we are aware that my husband didn't make any payment towards that company. Now, as for the reasons, we will have to look into that. From what I saw, because I think it would be very hard now for me to find their turnover records and all of the other details regarding the companies, such as, well, on the basis of that, to find some relationships. But from what I see, from what I have, we see that there's been no profit whatsoever. So other than that, I cannot tell you more. And I think we'll just have to do it the legal way to clarify the situation, because if he starts asking some questions and raise some issues, I think it wouldn't be fair for me to address it now, because he was not even the initiator, the founder of the company. So we will maintain a strict communication relationship to avoid the suspicion that that company was somehow established by my husband, or that they engaged in anything illegal. According to the law on limited liability companies, when a company is established, there are the incorporation acts that are supposed to be signed off by the founders. In this case, there are two co-founders. So it is assumed that your husband signed the incorporation acts, and then there's the statute of the company, and that is yet again to be signed by the founders. So it is assumed that your husband signed it as well, and that is followed by other relevant documentation. And that documentation has to be registered in the state register of companies, of legal entities, and at that point the founders are also supposed to be there. So it is assumed that your husband was knowledgeable, knew about all of these. Now he has a 50% share in the company. According to the law, he has the right to sell his shares to anyone, to the first founder or to another person. He has the right to sell his shares. Now, the fact that you say that you provided that request or that letter about him not signing documents, but that's not about what is legal or not. What he can legally do is sell his shares in the company. According to the law, there is this procedure that is detailed. Now you say that he didn't know, he was not aware, he gained no profit out of it. As established, this company had 3 vehicles registered as owned by the company. So when these cars were bought, these vehicles were bought, there had to be signatures of the shareholders allowing for those procurements. So how could you explain this? First of all, Madam Tatiana, the request was with regards to initiating a clarification of this situation. It was not some sort of a request or whatever you called it, but that was rather a request, a letter to clarify what the situation is and what their shares are as regards the procurements by the company, whatever assets they purchased. My husband certainly did not have any role in that, did not participate in that. To clarify the initial situation that actually took place at the outset when the company was founded, that was the purpose of our writing of the letters that we did in order for us to grasp, to understand what did they do initially. But now, through this letter, we practically initiated a process to clarify this situation, to seek information. And it was not about those turnovers or the procurements, as you mentioned. We are not aware of this, and we did not maintain any relationship with those people. There was no relationship of commercial nature or of other nature. And we will find a legal way to figure out a way for my husband to not have these formal shares that he allegedly has. But if we look at the legal nature of the relationships, you can see that as he was not the person who paid taxes, he was not the person who from the very beginning was involved, he was not involved with the operation of that activity, of that company, sorry, from the very beginning. But still, formally, it might look that he participated in the establishment of the company. But looking from a legal point of view, he did not participate. He did not participate even in the foundation, establishment of the company by paying his share, his contribution. He did not do that. So that was the reason behind the letter, to initiate some legal rapport between the company and my husband to identify the way in which we could, at the end of the day, establish the way in which he could withdraw from the company or to transfer over his shares to somebody else, because he made no payments from his money to that share capital. So it's only a perfunctory relationship.
So do you have anything to add or further clarify with respect to this issue?
Da, cu siguranță, doamna Nona. Deci,
Yes, Madam Nona.
Deci a fost așa o temă dezbătută.
This, no, as for a participating party to that report, I mean, my husband is a party to that, and I can communicate on the basis of what was already said, on the basis of documentation, and just so that I am understood in the Declaration on Income 2023, although I believe it was that he was rather formally a co-founder of the company, yet I declared his shares there. And the obligation emerges, the obligation to declare emerges at that point where you find out of the fact that you are concerned anywhere, like there is sort of a relationship like the formal one where he is the co-founder. When we learned about it, we reported, as he didn't have any income from the company, as it was indicated. No money was received by my husband from that company. And as my husband did not make any payments from his account towards this company as to appear as contribution to the nominal capital, then if you look according to the requirements of NIA, it's only formally there that his shares are reported only formally, so as to avoid any suspicions about not having declared something. But the law on how to declare and this whole concept and principle of declaration is that you declare, the rules are that you declare assets when you are aware of them, when you come to know of them, and when you have something to win out of it, to earn out of it, or when you incur expenses in relation to something, when in my case, this would be the declarant being concerned in such a relationship.
Thank you. Let's move to the next issue, and the next issue concerns cars, declarations in a manner prescribed by the law, and prices, sales and purchase prices. The first car we will deal with is Toyota Yaris, model year 2007. In your 2017-2018 annual declarations, you declared the Toyota Yaris car of 2007 with the value of 10,000 leis. The car was registered in January 2018 under your name. When asked by the Commission for a copy of the sales purchase contract, you stated that you did not have one because in 2018-19, and I quote, the procedure for concluding the contracts was simple, end of the quote. According to your 2019 annual declaration, you sold movable or immovable property for 10,000 leis without indicating what property you had sold. In your written answers to the Commission, you explained that it should have been presumed that you had sold the Toyota car. According to information from the Customs Service, the Toyota Yaris car you bought was imported by AirG. In 2016, this individual imported 3 Toyota cars of the same type of Toyota cars. The first car was imported on 18 March 2016 with the value of this car set at customs at 100,000 leis with fees paid in the amount of roughly 21,000 leis, totaling 121,000 leis. This is approximately 5,400 euros. The second car was imported on 15 August 2016 with the value set at customs at 100,000 leis, with roughly 20,000 leis paid as custom tax, totaling 120,000 leis, approximately 5,500 euros. The third Toyota was imported on 9 September 2016, with the value set at customs at 60,000 leis, with 20,000 leis paid as custom tax, totaling 80,000 leis, approximately 3,700 euros. According to Marketplace 999.md, a Toyota car model year 2007 is currently listed for 6,499 euros. It's roughly 130,000 leis. You were asked to explain the difference between the current market value and the declared value of this car. You stated that the difference between the market value and the declared price of this car was due to engine failure, which had made it impossible to use this car. In response to later questions, you stated that the specialist had checked the engine and that to obtain a confirmatory document concerning the condition of the car at the time of the sale, you would contact him. On April 26, you submitted an undated document signed by VI advising your husband to sell the car due to engine problem. And here again, I will begin by asking you some questions to establish the facts, and later on you can provide more explanations. Please confirm that in 2017 you bought a Toyota Yaris car model year 2007 for 10,000 leis.
So what's written in the declaration, Madam Nona? I cannot tell you from my memory, but I confirm what's written there.
This is 10,000 leis. When you were asked by the Commission for a copy of the sales purchase contract, you told the Commission that you did not have the copy because in 2018 and 2019, the procedure for concluding the contracts was simple. These are your words. Are you stating that you do not have a copy of the contract or that a contract was not used? Please explain.
I cannot tell you because, again, I was not a participant in this legal relationship. That's everything I can say. I don't know. Was there one? Was there a written one?
So you don't know. Okay. According to information from the Customs Service that I read to you, and that was also included in the materials that were furnished to you today, the price range of 3 Toyota cars, model year 2007, imported in 2016 by the seller from whom you purchased this car, varied from roughly 3,700 euros to 5,500 euros. Please explain, and if you could explain how you were able to buy the car for 10,000 leis.
Madam Nona, you read some data, you make reference to a person. I don't know who that person is. I don't know what they imported. I just know that the legal relationship where my family took part. I know only about relationship and the amount. According to the declaration, that's the contract amount, the purchase sale amount for the car. The fact that he imported other cars or declared some other prices, I don't know, and there is no way that I could know about it. So the contractual civil relationship between the people In that relationship, the purchase-sale price was declared.
Please confirm that you sold this car in 2019 for a declared price of 10,000 leis.
Yes, I think that is in my declaration, and I confirm what is written in the declaration.
You stated that the difference between the market value and the declared price of this car was due to engine failure, which made it impossible to use this car. Is that correct?
Yes, that car from the beginning it had certain defects. It was serviced, or the signature that was obtained is of a mechanic that is servicing, I think the entire city of Chisinau knows him. He is the one who serviced the car, and from the beginning when the car was not in a good shape, but subsequently as well, and specifically it had the issue that I mentioned in the declaration. It had an engine problem, and that person can be heard. For some time, this person was in Germany in relation to his job of repairing engines and cars generally, but subsequently, from what I know, he again did some repairs of a car. So from the time it was purchased until the time it was sold. So by the time of selling the car, that's the person that was mentioned, and he can confirm and you can identify the fact that he is a professional in repairing engines, and specifically that there was this defect, and it was recommended that it would be much more complicated to maintain that car, so they recommended to sell it.
So I was about to ask you some questions in relation with your intervention. So do you have any documentation of when the engine problem began and when it was first detected? So did you know about this problem when you bought the car, and if you knew why you did buy this car with the engine problem?
Well, obviously, of course, knew about this issue, but when you need to buy a car, when you have 2 children, and you are somehow limited in your expenses, you certainly, take that risk. And since my husband is in this area regarding vehicles and repairs, we know very good mechanics in Moldova, and when cars have defects, especially the ones that are brought from abroad, you get a very good price when you bargain, and some repair works have been purchased. I know that the mechanic knew that car. I'm speaking about servicing the car and the mechanic who serviced it, but it was used as well, and later on it was decided that it is necessary to sell it. Moreover, I can tell you that the person to whom we sold it, so I did my diligence, I told them that it had this defect. I don't know what was their need or purpose in buying that car, but in the end this is a civil relationship. It was mentioned that the car had this defect, but still it was decided. I mean the last sale-purchase transaction.
On April 26, you submitted a document signed by WI advising your husband to sell the car due to engine problem. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I was speaking about this mechanic who was servicing the car. He is performing repair works, he's doing his job, he's a professional in this field.
What is the relationship between you, your husband, or this person?
Well, they know each other because he's servicing not only the cars, all cars that my husband or our family had, but he's not. They probably know each other for a long period of time, and I don't know if they had any possibility to prove the defect of the repairs, because in the end it was my husband who was buying the spare parts, and the repair works was done with the contribution of my husband.
The letter that you submitted is the printed one, is it correct?
Yes.
Do you know who prepared this document? And when it was signed?
Da, cu siguranță.
Yes, certainly.
Persoana fiind mai mult în activitatea
Since that
legată de
person
reparații,
is mostly in this business
a
of
fost
repairs,
comunicare între
of course there was a communication between me, my husband, this person, and we asked, does he want to communicate? Because in the end it's the decision of that person. It's a bit disturbing for everyone around you, for everyone around us with all the requests that we make, especially a person who is, well, trying to help at home or try to help you improve the situation with the engine of your car, and now you come and make a request. And that is somehow pointing to the fact that some time ago you made the repairs and the person is not feeling very comfortable to write down an explanation. So I asked if that person recalls, if they can confirm, and he remembers because that car had a lot of issues, and the person agreed to sign that document. Of course it was with my contribution, you know, because with other communication than writing such requests and asking people to, if they agree to confirm, that's a problem.
Okay, can you specify when it was signed?
After I received the question from the Commission and the confirmation was needed. From what I know, for some time he was in Germany, as I said, but that is just communication of my husband and him, because, you know, he's a man professional in this field. It's not the case for me to get involved in this communication.
How would you know that he's the same person who assessed the car in 2019?
Assessed the car in 2019? I don't understand. He did not assess the car. Do you mean doing some repair works?
No, the car was sold in 2019, and you mentioned that this was done because of engine failure. So who was the person who did it in 2019, and is this the one who provided you the document now? Is Mr. V.I. the one who checked the car in 2019?
Siguranță, eu am
Certainly. I told you that along the years, the consultation of him as a professional in repairs and such kind of defects, my husband has been consulting him all this time because he's known to many people in Chișinău as a good professional in this field. And moreover, we recommended them to go to him in case if their car needs to be repaired. So we recommend this person to anyone who needs some car-related consultation.
Please explain how you were able to sell this car 2 years after you bought it for 10,000, the same amount as you bought it for.
Madam Nona, I cannot tell you. I can just say that the buyer was found, the sale-purchase transaction took place, and with the buyer, with defects, with setting the price, obviously it was my husband who handled all of that, because I cannot take part and I don't believe it's right for me to be part of such transactions. So neither communication, price setting, assessing the fact that is it right to sell it for this price, or what would be the investment in the car if we were to keep it and repair it, that was beyond me as a person. So speaking of declaration, in the content of the declarations of income, you can see, well, at least in that section, you see the price for purchase sale price, and that is an act that generated by a sale purchase contract, and I was not part of negotiations in assessing the defects. I was not part of it either, and I don't know the criteria based on which the price was established. I can only say now that as a result of that, it was decided that repairs were needed, or maybe the repairs were made. I did not take part in that.
Please explain why in your 2019 annual declaration you did not declare which property you sold. And please also explain what did you mean by saying that it should be presumed that you sold the Toyota car?
Asta tot am omis să o spun.
I omitted to say, I missed to say that I communicated with Nia, and there was a check previously, and this question was asked, and I would like to mention that as declarations evolved and changes that happened in all the declaration templates over the years, the task was to declare what became your property, and automatically, of course, you show the property that is not your property anymore. So Toyota was purchased, Toyota was sold. I communicated with the lady who was responsible for declarations and verifications. I explained her it's the same because it became my property, which means it left my property ownership. It was accepted and no violation was found because I cannot speak about another car that I sold it as long as I haven't bought it before.
Any questions? Okay, so do you have anything to add or further clarify with respect to this issue?
Nu, doar o constatare.
No, just to state that I really was not part of this. In my tax declarations, you see what was required, what I knew, that's what I mentioned. But subsequently, after finding that the car had a defect and communicating with that repair professional, it became clear to me that the car was sold fairly.
So now let's move to another car, which is BMW 525D, model year 2004. In August 2010, your husband imported BMW 525D E60 car, model year 2004. The vehicle was valued at customs at $150,000, with customs paid in the amount of roughly $45,000, totaling $195,000, which is equivalent to about 13,000 euros. In your 2012 annual declaration, you declared the BMW 525 model year 2004 car bought by your husband in 2010 for $190,000, which is roughly 7,000 euros. You were suspended from the position of the prosecutor during the period of October 2013 to June 2016 upon your request for childcare leave. So you were not required to submit annual declarations for 2013 and 15 pursuant to the legislation then in force. In your 2016-17 annual declarations, you declared the same make and model BMW car with a different license plate, bought by your husband in 2010 for $168,000, which is roughly 10,000 euros. In your annual declaration of 2018, you declared that your husband sold a BMW car for 10,000 leis, which is approximately 500 euros. In response to questions from the Commission about the difference between the license plates listed in your annual declarations for 2016-17, you claimed that BMW had been purchased in 2010 and had been sold in 2018, and you provided a copy of 2018 sales contract. You were also asked to explain the difference between the value of the vehicle at customs, its value declared in 2012 and 2016-17 declarations, and its sales price in your 2018 annual declaration. In your written answers to the Commission, you stated that, I quote, the amounts declared on the given car each year were interpreted according to different interpretations in the years of declaration, end of the quote. As to the sales price of the car, you noted that the quote, price difference was due to the fact that it was worn out, being with defects communicated to the buyer, who mentioned that he needed it for his job, so that, as far as I know, the car soon caught fire and was not saved, end of the quote. In your 2019 annual declaration, you declared that you had obtained income of 10,000 leis, roughly 500 euros, from selling this car. You explained that, quote, it is an item purchased in the family, so it represents a common property, and the indication of who obtained the income could be both my husband and me, end of the quote. And let me ask you questions to establish the facts. In 2010, your husband bought a BMW 525 car, model year 2004, for the price of 195,000 leis, roughly 13,000 euros. In your 2012 annual declaration, you declared the value of this car is 118,000 leis, roughly 7,000 euros, and in your 2016-17 annual declarations, you declared the value of this car as 168,000 leis, roughly 10,000 euros. Is that correct?
If that's according to my declaration, then it is correct.
You listed different license plates for this car in your annual declarations for 2016 and 17, and you explained that the different license plates were used because of changes in the registration numbers, and I would ask you to explain, well, what does it mean?
So a question was asked, difference in license plates. I asked my husband, and he was from Chimishlia. That was the CMGL registration abbreviation, and then later on it was not related to your official domicile place, so it was possible to get a new number plate that would be related or connected to Chisinau. That was my husband's explanation. I noted that was a car that was purchased before our marriage. No, it was after. The husband sold one car and purchased another one. So this was purchased after we got married, but he had initially a car that he sold. In 2010, he purchased a car. We brought it from Germany. We were there. Later on, that car was sold, and it's this car now. The car that we now own. These are the only cars of BMW brand.
In 2018 annual declaration, you declared that your husband had sold a BMW car for 10,000 leis. Is that correct?
Da.
Yes.
Please explain the sales price of the car of 10,000 leis in view of the fact that in your annual declaration you valued this car at 168,000 leis, which is roughly 10,000 euro.
Da.
Yes. I would like to provide more details because it won't be clear for everyone, and since this is being recorded, about this question. You read various amounts, and I would like to mention that since it was imported in 2010, produced in 2004, and in relationship to income declarations, there was a different interpretation, and you may have noticed that this change happened. What amount is declared as paid, or the price of the car? And you may see that over the declaration period, it's the same car, but there was the question, like, should I declare how it was purchased actually? And even now, that issue exists in buying, especially when you import cars. Or, so how do you declare it, with the actual price, or price plus improvement, or the customs value, or the price related to some payments like the import duties. That's why there was a fluctuation, like the actual import price or the price declared customs plus customs clearance expenses. So currently in the declaration have the initial good, initial contract, and all the benefits or expenses that took place in relation to that property. But there is also an issue with customs evaluation of the goods that are imported according to the average market price, even though it's not true. I mean, there's also an example, the question that you asked me about the car that we currently own. It was purchased from Germany. It was found at the price, and we provided the documentation. But as you have seen, the issue is that you declare the actual price, the money you paid from your family's budget, and then when you imported, you had some expenses for the import procedure, and taxation is established on the average market price that is established at customs clearance stage. That's why this leads to various interpretations. So ultimately, if they set an average price, like of this brand or the car that we currently have, or this car in question, there's an issue. Is this just formal declaration because my family's budget paid? So, meaning that we did not spend as much as declared in customs. But with respect to selling this car, it was said that the car was manufactured in 2004, imported in 2010. It was used, by the way, it's the same mechanic that serviced the car that we discussed in the previous question. And this defect and the condition of the car, if I'm not mistaken, there is a sort of evaluation or on-site there is an on-site report from the people who went there after the accident. So this defect was communicated to the person who purchased the car. This was the relationship between us, and from what I understand and from what I can afford to analyze, there's also the well, that the car was old, and it was also used in Moldova in this condition.
Okay, thank you. Concerning the sales price of the car, you noted that the price difference was due to the fact that it was worn out, being with defects communicated to the buyer, who mentioned that he needed it for his job, so that, as far as I know, the car soon caught fire and was not saved. You provided some explanations now, but please supplement if you have anything else to add. And also, please explain if you have any written documents that would prove the defects of the car.
I do not have the documentation for this, but I believe there should be some report regarding the time when that particular incident happened. I believe it should be there. Now, I'm not sure if I can have the time to look into that, if it's there. But if we were to check the database as it is an asset that some payments are related to, I imagine that it would not be there. So that might be an avenue for us to explore to find proof of the fact that it had damages. Apologies, Nona. I think your microphone is not on.
Apologies.
Please confirm that in your 2019 annual declaration, you declared income of 10,000 leis from selling this car. You claim that this information had been copied from the previous declaration and that part of the payment had been made in 2019. You further stated that it is an item purchased in the family, so it represents a common property, and that the indication of who obtained the income could be both my husband and myself. So is that correct?
Yes, that also stipulates what the source of income is, and I would like to mention that indeed it was indicated as sold, and the source of income, both spouses indeed. To me, there was an obligation, not a fiscal obligation, but an obligation towards NIA to declare to them that the asset had been sold and to introduce in the income section that piece of information that there was income into the family.
Unless there are any questions from the Commission, I will allow you to add any further clarification if you have or wish to supplement. No? Okay. So now let's move to last issue, and it's last car. It is a MAN truck. Model year of 1997. According to Access Web information, in August 2017, your husband registered a MAN truck, and in your 2017 annual declaration, you declared the purchase price of this car is 9,999 Moldovan leis, which is roughly 560 euros. You were asked by the Commission in written questions whether the declared price was the real price of the car. You claimed that according to a sales purchase contract of 17 August 2017, the price of this car was 10,000 leis, and that this was the real price. You did not submit this contract to the Commission. Bank records indicate that on 29 June 2017, your husband deposited roughly 96,000 leis, which is approximately 4,500 euros, into the account of another person. The purpose of the deposit was indicated as payment for credit. In your answers to the Commission's question as to the purpose of this credit, you explained that it was the payment for a MAN truck manufacturing year 1997. According to the sales purchase contracts of April 2021, your husband sold this truck for 202,000 leis, approximately 9,500 euros. You provided a copy of this contract to the Commission. Your husband paid taxes on the capital increase on the sale of this car. In your answers to the question concerning the difference between the declared contract and the real price of this car, you noted that the truck had been announced on the web, and the representatives of the seller informed your husband that the car had been mortgaged by a bank and that the owner needed the money to close the loan. You further stated that your husband had verified whether any obligation had been attached to the car and thereafter signed the sales purchase contract indicating 10,000 leis as the price of the truck. In your further answers, you added that the owner had wished to make, and I quote, at least 10,000 leis, end of the quote. In conclusion, you noted that the price of the car had been determined by the obligations attached to it. You did not claim that your husband had incurred the repair cost to this car. And now I'll begin to ask you some questions. In your 2017 annual declaration, you declared the price of your husband's MAN truck as 9,999 leis. Is that correct?
Conform declarației.
Yes, according to the declaration.
Okay. You did not claim that your husband had incurred the repair costs for this car. Is that correct?
Corect.
Correct.
On 29 June 2017, your husband deposited roughly 96,000 leis, approximately 4,500 euros, into AT's bank account as repayment of the credit. You explained to the Commission that it was not a loan that your husband had paid off, but it was the payment for a MAN truck. Is that correct?
Nu a fost plata.
It was not a direct payment for the MAN truck. Well, I will later provide some explanation as to that for you to understand how that vehicle was identified, was found, and how the payments were made from what was declared by the spouses.
You also noted that certain obligations had been attached to the truck, and before buying it, your husband made sure that it was free from those obligations. Please explain what those obligations were and what was your husband's contribution to this end.
Da, de asta și-am vrut să explic.
Yes, that is exactly what I was going to explain. There's the story and the circumstances that I am aware of and that my husband confirmed. So these obligations, because it was collateralized, it means that there were certain strings attached. And the purpose of my husband was to look into that and to find out whether there is anything else related to that particular asset, if there was any obligations that the previous owner had as far as that truck was concerned. So it was a collateral, and we were able to identify that we came across it on the 999 platform. So once we established that it was a collateral, there was not the owner, but there was someone who had a power of attorney signed off by the owner. And as far as I was told, the owner of the truck was actually abroad, and he had no care whatsoever about that asset. Having that power of attorney, that person that the power of attorney was on had the permission to take care of the sale, but that person, that representative, said that, look, this asset serves as a collateral with a bank, and that was the whole problem about this particular truck. And the situation was that, well, if you want, that they wanted to sell that asset and to be able to get at least something out of it from selling it. And if that is not possible, if it was not possible to find a buyer, and if it was not convenient to sell it, then they were going to leave it with the bank and thus to net off whatever debt they had as part of a contract where the truck was a collateral. So my husband found this car on the 999 platform. So it means, well, that truck was already involved as a collateral in some transactions. So therefore, those were that sort of obligations attached, and my husband saw that as some sort of a dangerous affair, because we know what the realities are when an asset is pledged as a collateral in a bank. Then you might find out that there's something else, some other transactions that a particular asset is concerned in, and you might find out that other people have some claims regarding that particular asset. So that was the thing with my husband, having to look into that asset, having to look into whether the truck would stop being a collateral in an agreement so that he could acquire finally that asset. And also considering that we didn't know who the person was and that there was a power of attorney in the middle, there was a risk that even where the asset would have nothing to do anymore with the bank, then the contract was yet to be signed, and there could be some entail some other payments. Either way, the point was just to follow through and see that the sale and purchase would come through, but he did not participate in any collateral affairs whatsoever, in fact.
You confirm that
Mă scuzați, doamna Nona, deci a
Sorry,
fost
but
acceptat prețul care a fost propus de
The
către
price
soț,
that was proposed by my husband was accepted, and he was not even interested. And he said if we didn't take that amount for that, then the truck would have just been left with the bank. The bank would have taken it away because of the debt that the owner had to the bank.
So you confirm that your husband's deposit of 60,000 leis into AT's bank account was for the track. On the other hand, you told the commission that your husband paid 10,000 for this car, and in your annual declaration, you also declared the same amount for this car. Did the seller return the difference between 60,000 leis and 10,000 leis? And if so, do you have any confirmation documents for that?
Da, deci am comunicat cu soțul.
Yes, I talked to my husband about this issue, and it's a little bit more complicated to establish the circumstances that took place. So he went with that person to the bank, and the truck was removed as a collateral. It was no longer a collateral. So when the contract was concluded and the money was given for sale and for this sale and purchase affair. So that was the 10,000 that was paid. As for the payment of the amount with the bank, as far as I understood, the payment was made by the person who was the owner of the truck. The task of my husband was only to check that and to just take those actions in order to make sure that the truck is no longer a collateral, just to be on the safe side and that there was no any obligations or strings attached to the truck. But the amount that my husband paid for the truck was 10,000 lei. That was a very advantageous contract, and that person had an interest to sell it because they said that I either leave this asset to the bank for that debt, it was 95,000. I either do that or I take it out from under the collateral status and I get another 10,000 as a result of this procurement. So there was an advantage both for the seller and the buyer. That's for the purpose.
I think I have some follow-up questions on this regard to understand. So please explain what you mean by saying that the owner wished to make at least 10,000 leis, and whether it can be assumed that the remaining amount from the deposited 60,000 into AT's account had been used to remove obligations attached to the truck. So just to understand.
Nu obligații. Deci,
well, not obligations, but I mean, I will try to explain. The owner of the truck or the representative of the truck, if they didn't find a buyer, they would have left the truck with the bank to extinguish whatever amount the owner owed the bank. And the advantage for them is that they found a buyer and they were able to earn a plus value, these 10,000 lei. So it was a gain for that person by selling it. If they didn't come across a person like my husband who was willing to buy it, they wouldn't have had those 10,000 because they were not interested in taking the asset out from the bank and then to figure out can they sell it or not, since he was just a representative. If I'm not mistaken, that was the daughter or a woman. There was something there, because that was a very advantageous affair because the price was very good and the interest of that person, well, to either leave it with the bank because there was no buyer and that would be the 95,000, or they do the sale and purchase affair and they have the transaction and they have then the 10,000 as income or profit from that transaction.
Your husband sold this car in 2021 for 202,000 leis, approximately 9,500 euros. Is that correct?
Da?
Yes.
Please explain how your husband was able to sell this car 4 years later for almost 20 times more than the amount that he paid for it.
Da, contractul a fost încheiat cu o companie.
The contract was concluded with a construction company,
Într-adevăr, a încheiat și
and I would like to mention that that contract was a very good one for that truck. And those who sold it, they were either really having no gains at all, no profit at all, or they were just they would either had no profit at all or they profited 10,000. Now, it was sold to another road construction company.
suma dată de bani. Și
And they provided that amount of money, and I will explain this.
deci, ca să găsești un automobil,
So for you to find this sort of a truck,
este complicat de a-l
considering that it's hard to even find one, it's a special truck. So it's quite problematic to come across one, to find one, to import it, to check to do all these fitness tests and check it and all that. So it was improved and rather, so to speak, made better a little bit. No, but this particular transaction is like a civil relationship, and both parties agreed on it. There was another LTD, so it was like between these companies, and if I'm not mistaken, it was that the LTD that paid taxes. So out of the transaction, the tax related to that transaction was paid to the state.
Sorry, I'm still having trouble with the amount that your husband paid to buy the truck. There's a deposit of 95,930 lei that your husband made into the account of the person who had the power of attorney to sell the truck. Is that correct?
Doamna Victoria,
Madam Victoria, out of communication with my husband, that was the money of the person who sold, and the interest of that person was to take the car away from the bank, so to speak, or to just accept that amount as it was and just lose the car. So that's why I said that the only thing that that person won was the 10,000.
am înțeles întrebarea. Deci, el a
No, I understood the question. He participated, he deposited the money, but as far as he told me, the money was only to stop the car being collateralized, and the money was of the owner. The money that the person that the money came from was the owner herself. And the whole purpose of this transaction just to guarantee the fact that the car wouldn't be taken, will stop being a collateral, wouldn't be sold to somebody else, and to just prove and make sure that there were no other issues with regards to the truck, like seizures or whatsoever, any strings attached, just to make sure that it was not a scheme. Because obviously it's very interesting that that amount that it was bought for, and there was an interest in that contract. It's just that there was suspicion as to, well, maybe there was a trick there, maybe a scam. Just they wanted to be on the safe side. I mean, that was not even the actual owner, but someone with a power of attorney. And they were concerned about whether there would be any other tax obligations. What if something new emerges later on? What if the seller of the truck, what if there's already a contract somewhere else? So that was the role of my husband.
The owner or the person holding the power of attorney gave your husband 95,930 lei, which your husband then deposited back to the account of the person with the power of attorney?
Deci, din ce am comunicat,
Yes, from what I talked to my husband, that was the relationship, as he told me. That those were the purposes that they pursued. But on the other hand, that person might have not been wanting to pay that loan, and they could have otherwise just left it with the bank, and thus the bank would have just taken the car, the truck that was a collateral. But the person, the representative, was willing to get at least something in addition, an amount on top of that loan that was taken from the bank where the truck was collateralized.
Why would this person give your husband money to have your husband pay back to the same person?
nu să-i dea înapoi. Deci aici
No, it was not like paying it back. I mean, that was the idea. That person was an intermediary in that relationship just to make sure, to be sure that ultimately that truck that would no longer be a collateral would be sold to him for 10,000.
So your husband's total output for this was 10,000 lei.
asta ce e, da, asta ce e.
Yes, that's from what I know from my communication with him and from all that relationship. That's all I know. The payment, the contractual amount that was paid by my husband was 10,000 lei.
But your husband did also receive this 95,000 lei from the owner or the person holding.
Nu le-a primit.
He
Just let me finish the question.
Da.
Thank you. Did receive that money, which he then paid back to the person holding the power of attorney, not to the bank, but to the person holding the power of attorney. Is that correct?
El i-a dat 10.000 de lei pe...
he gave that person 10,000 lei as per the contract.
What's the deposit of 95,930 lei then that your husband made, that you said your husband made to that account? That was also money your husband gave to that person, correct?
Nu sunt banii persoanei.
No, it's the money of the person that the truck belonged to. So that person who made the transaction, the interest of the owner was to either remove the car from the bank and earn 10,000 lei, or leave the car, the truck, with the bank, and that is setting off like the 95,000, like it's left with the bank. So that was the whole situation, and my husband found an interest in that contract too.
Bună ziua.
There is something that is not quite clear, and there were facts that were read out, partially confirmed. So at the end of the day, your husband, for this car, he paid how much?
Contractul 10.000
As
de lei.
the contract says 10,000, the contract says 10,000, and that's all? No other additional obligation? Yes, that's what I'm saying. The money spent from his pocket. No, the money he took out of the pocket for this car is 10,000 lei. Fine, thank you.
Deci ați înțeles bine.
Then there was some risk for him, but there was always also an interest in this contract. So that's what was communicated to me by my husband. Apologies, Madam Gladcov. I perhaps do not have any entrepreneurial skills because I can't understand this transaction at all. If you would be so kind to explain again. The person who was the owner of this truck. So that car, the truck, was a collateral in the bank.
5.000 de lei, da?
Say for the amount of 95,000. That was the amount that was collateralized with a truck. Whose was that money of? Just to make sure that that agreement would be concluded at a good amount of 10,000 lei. So taking it from under collateral. So it was either from the one who has the power of attorney or the house, so, of the husband. So that amount came from the person who sold the truck. So look, there's a person who he's the owner, he owns the car, the truck. He gives your husband 95,000 so that your husband put it on his account. Yes, that was the condition of my husband for the contract to be concluded. That person was not interested in the sale purchase so much. I mean, they were not so much to sell it. They were just maybe thinking to maybe gain something out of it. There was a risk that the asset would have just been taken away by the bank because there was this obligation to pay the 95,000. So they would either extinguish that and remove it from under this collateral status and gain 10,000, or not do that at all, just leave it with the car and just with the bank, sorry, and just not have anything at all. If he had 95,000, they give it to your husband. They didn't give it to, but so he had this money. Why didn't that person just buy the car back from the bank and sell it for more money? Because he was not interested in that. So how come that person, oh, I mean, he did publish, so he just wanted to sell it for 10,000 to your husband? He didn't want to. He published an announcement that it was out for sale. And then they talked about it and it figured out that there is a collateral, that it was collateralized. And then they agreed that my husband could pay that amount for the truck, and that was the problem, that it was only collateralized by the bank. And then my husband told him, I am not sure about what comes out of it if we just do it like this. And then he says, fine, then I will just have this, it'll stay at this amount of money. The bank can take the truck, but for 95,000. So their discussion was, we'll have an agreement. The amount is 10,000 of procurement, but I need to be certain that you indeed remove it from the bank, and to make sure that it does not serve as a collateral for whatever other obligations. And that was followed by sale and purchase agreement. Are you saying that the bank gave him 95,000? But I don't know what was that. But that's what you just said now, because there was the option. It's either the bank. There was a loan was leased, as in, I'm not sure if there was a loan, if that's what it's called, but as far as I know, and as far as my husband knew, it was a collateral. Eventually, if the amount wasn't paid to the bank, the truck would have been taken away by the bank. And when the announcement was made by that person who had that power of attorney, they wanted to look into whether there was anyone at all interested in buying such a vehicle. And when that person was identified to conclude a contract with, it was agreed that, like, this is the amount, and that person said, I'm ready to have any other profit, so to speak, rather than just for this asset to be taken away by the bank as collateral. So the asset was collateralized for 95,000. I guess. How do you mean you guessed? You said that. You said it served as a collateral. I am the owner, and that comes out of your story. I took 95,000. I gave it to your husband, and then so that I, at the end, get 10,000 from your husband. It doesn't make this whole scheme of me setting that asset as a collateral for having 95,000 from the bank, and then I give 95 to your husband so that he then gives me 10,000 a day. The whole point was about the owner getting 10,000 plus. But how do you have a benefit if there's the 95,000? But you are paying 95,000, right? Aren't you giving them 95,000? Then you get the car back. I don't know the circumstances. What led them to concluding that contract? I cannot communicate what made the intermediary enter into that contract. All I know is from what I found out regarding this transaction. If required, and if there's any possibility for you, I mean, if there's somebody that you can contact, maybe this person, maybe my husband could maybe obtain more information, if there's any way to further find out more about it. The Commission asked you about it. This is not new, certainly, but he cannot find that person, and that is certain. But maybe there's a different reason. Maybe he paid more than 10,000, but maybe they agreed to pay 10,000 to avoid paying taxes. He did not pay more than 10,000.
So he did not, but maybe they agreed to avoid the seller paying taxes. No, there was no such discussion. Well, if the seller sells a car for 10,000, well, I can't tell you. Well, if the seller does that, he doesn't have to pay capital increase gain. Yeah, but the task was on that person to pay, and your husband may have agreed with that. No, he did not. With not paying taxes or stating some wrong amount. It is the amount written in the contract that the seller agreed with, the intermediary actually, not the owner.
I'm also, I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I fully understand the thing. So there is a car which is at the bank at the moment because someone apparently has a debt to the bank for roughly 95,000. So someone has to pay the bank 95,000 in order that the car will be released again. So your husband is willing to pay the 95,000, and on top of that, there's a 10,000. So the actual total price, I suppose, then that your husband may have paid for the car is roughly about 105,000, which is the 10,000 on the one hand, and the 95,000 to pay off that debt that that person has. Is that then the total price that your husband paid for the car? What was the? Let's put it anyway, because you said the car was for sale on a website. What was the price of that car on that website?
Nu pot să cunosc.
I don't know. I don't know the price. I know that this discussion, if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't even known that the car was, the vehicle was pledged with the bank. But what was published is really difficult for me to say. I only know that my husband was really interested in that because that was something very good, and he made a benefit out of that subsequently. I know that it was announced that it was pledged, and it is possible to take out this encumbrance only when a buyer is found, and if just someone is interested in an piece of equipment like that on the territory of Moldova. About what was published on the website, I don't know, and I don't know how I can get it. Communication with the intermediary, I don't know nothing about that either. So I only know of the relationship and the documents that I have and the communication with my husband. So what is certain, he was really interested in the price. So you may see that he sold it at a very good price. Now, he knows this field of work, he understands the value of goods. So he later found a way to sell this vehicle. So indeed, he was interested in the price and lack of interest of a person who sold this vehicle. This is what I was told, and this is what I can tell you. I really cannot find any publication about that. I am sorry, Ms. Gladcov, for insistence, but the more we discuss about this, the more it raises questions. Let me try to show another perspective. This vehicle, this truck, was pledged for around 96,000 lei. So its minimum price, as assessed by the bank, was 96,000 lei, right? Yes, probably. Then you said that this person could not sell it, and in a way or another concluded this contract for 10,000 lei in order to earn a 10,000 lei profit. So this person either gave it to the bank or... And when we ask you how much did your husband pay for this truck, you said 10,000 lei. That means, and this is what you told us, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the seller paid the bank the amount of the pledge, 96,000. Yes? Now I'm wondering, I really don't understand, and if I miss something, tell me please. I am the seller. I have the option to pay the pledge, the 96,000 lei, take my car and sell it for at least 96,000 lei, because that was the assessment of the bank as a minimum price. I agree. Just let me please finish my question. So, in fact, according to the formula that you were explaining, he only got a benefit of 10,000 lei, while he could just pay himself that and make 96,000 lei out of it. Where's the economic rationale in that? I really don't understand. Maybe I keep repeating it, but I want to understand precisely. So besides the 10,000 lei that were specified in the sale purchase contract, your husband paid nothing for this vehicle. Once more, initially, what I told you, he was not interested, and the publication and the offer to sell that vehicle was in order to see, besides what they had with their pledge, if they can get some money, or do they just leave that property with the bank. And he was not interested in taking the good out of pledge and then try to sell it, and if there is anyone who would be interested to buy such a good, and at what price. So this is what was communicated by the intermediary, this is what was told to my husband, and this is what I declared. The interest of that person was to see if they can get at least some money. I mean, and they negotiating 10,000 lei or 95,000 lei. Unfortunately, here I really cannot give an evaluation of the legal relationship we established. I accept your answer. Thank you. It was complicated. A question: these 95,000, how did they leave the account of your husband? He transferred it to the bank or another method. How did these 95,000 leave your husband? So they were, as you said, they were put on the account of your husband. I did not say. I was asked this in a question round, and it was found that there was a deposit. And when I asked the husband what was the way of the transaction between you, and the question was, if you look at the question round, it says that the husband was contracted a loan, and that's not true. He did not contract any credit. And try to see how did the situation evolve. I mean, why did you have to pay the bank? And later on, it was told that this was the relationship. There was an option to buy this vehicle at a very good price. That's true. But this amount, how did it get to the bank in order for the pledge to be removed? Who paid the bank? From the information I was provided, my husband made that deposit. Don't hurry. The husband took money from his account and gave it to the bank. The money was not taken from account. There was some cash amounts between the intermediary and my husband. I cannot say if that was paid by banking card or something. I really don't have information about that. I don't know.
AT was the person with the power of attorney, correct, with respect to the vehicle?
Probabil.
Okay.
Probably so.
And the bank records that we have showed a transfer from your husband's account into that account in the amount of 95,930 lei, correct? So that is a payment that your husband paid to the person with the power of attorney. Who knows what happened to it, but presumably to pay off the loan that was owed against the truck.
I really don't have information about that, Madam Victoria. I cannot confirm, I can say that it was like that or not. I just don't have such information, and I cannot say what was the nature of that transaction and relationship. So, to be clear, I was asked about my declaration of income and expenses, this contract, and when information was raised in these questions, I communicated with my husband. What was the nature of their relationship? What kind of credit was there? And this is what this husband explained to me about that transaction. I was not party to that transaction. I don't know what relationship they had, and I cannot say was it a transfer or was some money given back in cash? I really don't know. I know that this car was purchased for 10,000 lei, and at the time when I had to file the declaration, I called my husband. I asked, do we have any purchases or sales? And he said that a vehicle was purchased. I asked him what was the value according to the sale purchase contract. I was told it was 10,000 lei. That is the initial information that I provided to Nia. And later on, the way this transaction worked, or the stages of this transaction, I don't know about that.
Based on everything you know, does it appear that the total amount that your husband paid for the vehicle, and not just limited to the contract price, was 105,930 lei?
I can't say it seems to be like that because I am only Speaking about the figures, and now I can't say that because I don't have any certainty that it is like that or it is otherwise. I mean, to raise doubt or to communicate information that I don't know, it's not right either. Microphone, please.
Any other questions on this? If not,
So do you have anything to add or fully clarify with respect to this issue? Otherwise, we are-
Da, subiectul a fost foarte aprins.
This issue was a very heated one, but for me, to say, well, certainly on the side regarding my husband's interest towards buying this truck, the first initial stage was clear to me, and there was a mix-up of my obligation to make the declaration. When the vehicle was purchased, I had to declare the price of a vehicle according to the document that generated that relationship, and that is 10,000 lei for the sale purchase. And at the current stage, when this question was asked, that is additional and it exceeds the obligation, or it is beyond the obligation that I had in the context of declaring assets, because the declaration only covers the sale purchase contract and the price. But when this question was asked in the communication with my husband, I found out a more complex process of sale and purchase and obtaining this property. He certainly was interested in this contract because the price was very good. He certainly earned when he sold this, and from that income we paid tax. Also, I want to make it very clear that I am a person, I was not a direct participant to this contract. So I just declared it, and according to the list of questions in the declarations, the contract that generated the ownership right and the price. But again, with the improvements, as Madam Nona asked me about car repairs and everything else, some repairs took place, yes, but at the stage when I declared it, and based on the way of communication between me and my husband, was that, did you sell anything? Did you buy anything? The next question is, at what price? For buying or selling things, according to the contract that generates the declaration and other things. And now, in the current situation, we communicated, but the questions you are asking about way of communication and payments are beyond me, because I did not take part in that relationship. That's what I want to make clear.
if there are no other questions, then I give you the opportunity to make a brief closing statement. Please go ahead.
A fost un proces aprins.
This has been a very heated process of establishing all circumstances and investigation of the financial situation. First of all, I would like to be thankful for this, because it allowed, and I heard my other colleagues speaking about that, it allowed us to make some order in our financial matters. Secondly, it is very difficult because it covers a totality of actions that people in your family carry out, and I would like to make reference to Mr. Miron, who knows about cars, of repairs of cars, imports of cars, and I think that all my colleagues will have the same issue. But it is more complicated when the situations that we discussed today, the legal situations, if we look at all matters, I am in no way a person who was involved in these transactions. It was really difficult for me to understand, because you realize when this question was asked, my husband took a credit, and that was a discussion in a raised voice. And then other questions were asked that gave me clarity that keeping in check your transactions and financial actions of a family, even though money is obtained legally. You need to pay more attention to that, and I think this is a gap when you have to declare all your family members when you are a prosecutor or a mission, as it was in the situation with the limited company, when we just found out now about this situation, that if he had the obligation not for me only to be the person who carries this burden. At the same time, I would like to encourage my colleagues to go through this activity. It's very good for your financial and family education. I am happy with all the activity and situations of my husband, especially in circumstances of Moldova and his attempt to find the source and the legal possibility to provide financial security for us. I mean, as much as it is complicated, but I was calm because income is legal. Everything was managed with legal income, and I am really happy with. And you make an extraordinary effort, especially coming from the free foreign members. You're making this effort for us, and I'd like to encourage my colleagues. This is not scary. Moreover, it is very effective. It is very effective for you to see that besides deficiencies, besides the fact that the loan declaration and TUNIA is very narrow, and in some respects it is very like a sale-purchase contract, price in the sale-purchase contract. But in the way this evaluation took place now, things were much more correct, and somehow, and I would like to disclose that so that my colleagues feel a bit uncomfortable because there is a verification here, but NIA over the years had different interpretation on how we should declare things, and there is some fear that the example that I had with the car. In 2016, we declared only the initial price as per the contract. In 2017-18, you had to declare the entire amount together with the customs clearance. Now, and I think this amendment was done over time because of such mistakes, and now we declare the improvements of this property as well. And these things are very important as an exercise for all prosecutors. I encourage it. I encourage them to come. I support this contribution, no matter how difficult for us all, because this involves some family situation and relations with other parties that are part to contracts. Nevertheless, they should be part of this exercise. I think they should come, and by own example, this will lead to improvements, and all members will see that there are issues regarding making sure that the prosecutor is independent, for the prosecutor to be provided with certain conditions, both in terms of financial vulnerability of relationships, because issues regarding to the contract activities or possibility to carry out various actions, it was very limited in order not to raise questions. Why did you take part in this sale-purchase contract? Why the price was very good? That means that you were somehow involved personally, like I was as a prosecutor involved. So all of that together, and I think that the task for you, members, is to notify not as much the financial and ethical problems, but to notice the conditions that lead to such risks. and you will give us the possibility to have some certainty and criteria to set the foundation for independent prosecutors of a new kind, a new form of prosecutors, with guarantees. And here the ethical aspect, that's why I asked the Commission why I was more active, and I asked, will there be any ethical questions so that I can be prepared? I was told that only these questions will be asked, but I got informed on the ethical questions in case if the prosecutor doesn't have now randomly assigned files, the prosecutor doesn't have any guarantee of being independent. I'm not speaking just pro forma, like officially having all the rights, all guarantees, and all the certainty. So as long as this is not ensured, and from what I've read, the Commission will rely on some principles when making the decision, and will understand where it's indeed the prosecutor to be blamed and where. And I'm only speaking about prosecutors because currently I am the prosecutor, the only prosecutor here, and I understand that, and this is a big task on us, prosecutors sitting here at this table. And I think we are the ones who should lay the foundation to start building the independence of a prosecutor. Independence from ethical perspective, independence from a financial perspective, and I count a lot on the fact that regardless of the decision, it will be established when the person, the prosecutor sitting before you, is really guilty, or were the preconditions to create circumstances for that, or also being in front of you, having in the Commission a representative of Moldova to explain the traditions, the customs, and problems that exist in the Republic of Moldova in relationship with the violation or the reasonable doubt towards the person who is being assessed. That was it. It was probably tiresome, but I'm really grateful to you, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much. And with this, we come to the end of the hearing. I thank you for answering all our questions, also today, but also in writing. Commission will now withdraw for deliberations, and as much as possible, as you know, the Commission will strive at delivering a decision within a month after the date of this hearing. I hereby declare this hearing closed. Thank you very much.